Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector. And I kind of introduced that, although we've been chatting here in the room for a bit already, I kind of introduced that because we will put this recording out on Incaptive. We'll put this recording out on our YouTube page as well. So who am I? Again, the nonprofit sector connector. This is the Nonprofit Executive Roundtable. And we do this every month. And as we are here in 2021, we're doing this at 8:15 a.m. Eastern time to 9:55 a.m. Eastern time every fourth Thursday of the month. So that's when you can find us here. And Christine, Deska, and I have been collaborating on this now for, I guess it's been like 3 years. I didn't expect to see Christine today, and because she has a commitment, and we will do our best to make her proud. I will be running both parts of the show today. The networking portion, as I like to call it, right? The community, the connecting, and then obviously the conversation with our thought leader, our subject matter expert, Dave Linn, the gratitude dude who's here with us today. So every single time we have this meeting, I ask you to do something for me. I ask you to make sure that you tell us who you are, what organization you're from, if you work for, represent, run, founded, whatever, an organization. And if you do not, if you're a service provider to the sector, tell us if you do sit on a board, tell us what you provide and how you work within the sector and how you add value to the sector. And then today we're going to do a ripple. Because Dave's the gratitude dude, and we're going to talk about purpose and gratitude, what I'd like you to share, and I feel with a group of this size, we can go a little longer than I usually allow. But why don't you share, aside from who you are and what you do, share something you're grateful for and what you want Dave and I to navigate the conversation towards regarding gratitude and purpose for your organization. So who you are, what your organization does, something you're grateful for, and what you want us to address for you today. Because Dave and I talked about this last night, but I really want to make sure we're catering towards what you need. So that's that. So we will start with Sean Slevin. And from Sean, we will go to Mick Collins. So let's go right about 45 to a minute. I'll kind of make sure we're moving along. I'm going to be a bit liberal with the time, but let's do our best to keep it somewhat tight if we could. So Sean and then Mick Collins, please.
Sorry about that. So Sean Slevin, founder of Swim Strong Foundation, not-for-profit that is reducing drowning, unintended drowning and water-based accidents, not only in New York, but our mission is to do that globally. We do it by providing in-water programs as well as educational programs, and we're celebrating our 15th anniversary. Please take a look in the chat and you'll see something about that. Just grateful to be here. Tommy's been a friend for a long time and interested to meet all of you.
Thank you, Sean. Anything specific you want us to cover around purpose or gratitude today?
We're a volunteer-based organization, and though I often shout out my thanks, to my volunteers, I think I need to find something that's a little refreshed around that, so that it catches their attention. So maybe if others have ideas that they can share, that is, cost light or no cost, but to really share the love with the volunteers, I'd appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great. I'm sure that's going to be a common thread that runs through this. Let's go to Mick Collins and then Charlie Birch, please.
Hey, Mick Collins, Pay It Forward Processing, payment processing with a purpose. We provide business owners peace of mind with their credit card processing across a broad spectrum of industries. We do this with fair rates, great support, and none of the things that aren't fair, like contracts or hidden fees, et cetera, et cetera. All this, and our clients get a personal account manager. They save money and they help us with our purpose, which is generating an ongoing donation to a nonprofit. I am grateful for Tommy a couple of times, like exponentially with TNG and with this forum here. Really appreciate it. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Thanks for what you do. Appreciate your friendship. Let's go to Charlie Birch and then the guest on Philanthropy in Focus this week, my friend Paul Rubenkamp. Good morning. So Charlie and then Paul.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation, Tommy. So my involvement in the nonprofit space is I am the co-social chair of the local moms club, Galloway and Absecon Moms Club. We are a 501c3. And we also do some, supporting the members, obviously, but then we also do some community giving programs and stuff. And I just took that role this year, so I'm fairly new to the officer committee. And that's my tie to the nonprofit world. And I'm interested in just hearing what everybody has to say. We're always looking for other organizations to partner with and contribute to. So
Thanks for being here.
for having me.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. All right, let's go to Paul Rubin and then Vicki Elner.
Hey, everybody. My name is Paul Rubin. I'm the executive director of Camp Good Morning. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that provides free, absolutely free bereavement camp programs for Long Island children who are coping with the death of a parent or sibling. I don't know if some of you know, but 1 in 7 children experience the death of a parent or sibling by the age of 20. Since COVID hit, an additional over 46,000 children have lost a parent. 25% of our children that attended camp in the spring were COVID-related deaths. So it's a pretty big factor that probably a lot of people do not know. One thing that I am grateful for personally is having to be, and again, it is personal. So it's about being able to spend the last few years with my dad while he was sick, something I'm very grateful for. And also professionally, as everybody is going to probably mention, it's the volunteers. And the way that I try to show my gratitude is simply by really getting to know them personally and not just as a volunteer. So it's really kind of asking them that second and third question about, how's their life going, and really meaning it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your candor. I really appreciate it. Vicki Elner and then Amy Zaslansky.
Yes. Hi, good morning, everybody. And it's always a pleasure to be on these calls. Thank you, Tommy and Christine, for putting this together. I have extensive not-for-profit background, including being the founder for a organization that I ran for almost 20 years. Right now, my focus is on working with New York Statewide Senior Action Council. I'm on their board of directors. They are almost a 50-year organization. Actually, next year, they'll be celebrating that anniversary. Grassroots advocacy and a voice for senior and aging issues that is statewide, and we are positioned right now to organize a Long Island chapter. It's kind of delayed because of the pandemic, but we're working on it. The other tier of my life is spent with an organization that I've been working with for a short time called Great Panthers, New York City chapter. Great Panthers is it started in the 70s by a woman named Maggie Kuhn, and basically focused on ageism and youth and age in motion, so to speak. The major focus that we've had is on honoring nursing home lives and nursing home transformation. And to what you were just saying, Paul, relevant to things in the pandemic, statistically, about 1/3 of people who have passed from COVID have died in either a nursing home, long-term care facility, and about 95% of people who have passed are over 50. And unfortunately, and very sadly, one of those people is my brother. I lost my oldest brother to COVID last Thanksgiving. So I have a personal, tie to what we're doing, and we're very active, including looking to we're talking to elected officials right now to get a memorial done to honor people and to recognize people who have passed in that way. So what am I grateful for? So many things, but for now, I'll just tell you I'm grateful for the beauty of what remains, and those are the memories that I have of my brother, and and to keep his spirit alive. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, just an aside, a shout out to Amy Zelansky, who it's nice to see you. I don't know you, but in another phase of my life, I have something on my agenda to talk to you, so I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Well, that was a perfect introduction because Amy's going to speak next. But after Amy, it'll be Tammy. Tammy, thrilled that you're here, by the way. I haven't seen you so long. So that's good, Vicki. Whatever that networking, whatever's going to happen there, I'd love to hear about it later on if everybody benefits from that. But thank you for your candor, obviously. And again, our condolences on the loss of your big brother. So let's go to Amy and then Tammy, please.
Okay, Vicki, you definitely piqued my interest, so curious to what that is about. Amy Zaslansky, founder of the Book Fairies. What we do is super simple. We take all the books that you don't need anymore, check them for age and condition, and give them back out to underserved communities on Long Island and the 5 boroughs. Grateful for the fact that we are almost at our 3 millionth book donated. So that's going to be a big celebration coming up. Also super on a gratitude weird way that I can give my son a hug today. He's a freshman at Tulane. So he has been home since Hurricane Ida, and he goes back today, back to his happy place, but I can at least see him before he goes back off. And in terms of gratitude, the Book Fairies is actually in a nice transition with getting new board members and really changing things over with our board and looking at onboarding practices. So my big thing for today is appreciation of our board members and to make sure that they feel just as invested and engaged with us as we need them to be.
Thank you, Amy. Certainly something I discussed last night was around board members and obviously volunteers as well. So we will definitely hit upon that. So let's go to Tammy and then Eileen Karina, please.
Of course, I love the little thing that says, guess what, you're muted. So good morning, everyone. I'm Tammy Severino. I am the interim president and CEO over at Girl Scouts of Suffolk County. I was a board member and I was asked to step in several months back as the organization worked its way through COVID and following the retirement of the former CEO who was in there for a long time. So the organization's made a lot of changes over the last number of months, and we're looking at a lot of gratitude both for our staff that have stepped up in more ways than I can count, as well as for our volunteers. Most of you know Girl Scouts. We are troop operated, and within, each troop belongs to what's called a service unit. They're usually organized by school district, and our service unit volunteers have kept Girl Scouts running all year through, a year that, when you say a year like no other, it really was. And they came back for a first in-person event just this past week, and the excitement was so palpable, and we want to help keep them at that level and keep the gratitude and let them, really feel the partnership between the staff and the volunteer base. So that'll be the thing that I'm looking for. I am a fundraising consultant. I have been doing that for 11 years. I still have a handful of my private clients. I do want to say thank you to Amy. My daughter is handing off a library that she built for a shelter as her Silver Award project for Girl Scouts tomorrow. And she is so inspired by all the concept of literacy and understanding that for folks who are trying to get out of certain situations that they've been in, that the ability to read is the key to jobs, to everything that moves them forward. So she built a library and has books that are for adults, young adults, and kids, varying ages of kids. So that's being handed off tomorrow to a shelter on Long Island. She does have from authors, like an author sent her a case of books. So I have multiple copies of that. I'd love to give you the rest of them, so that you have them for passing them to other locations. But my thanks to the Book Fairies. I really feel she knew about you, and she was very inspired by what you do.
Thank you, Tammy. Please send along my appreciation to your daughter.
I shall. I'm looking at the last stack of books. That's it's exactly where they should go.
When the books get out of your house, maybe, right? And they move into the hands of people who need them, right?
Exactly.
Well, listen, thank you for all of that, Tammy. And I mean, Amy, I know the story. It all started because there was a school that needed some books. And, we don't have time for your whole story now, but now it's turned into 3 million books going in the hands of people who need them. I mean, incredible. And what comes to mind for me, Eileen's going to go next and then Roberta, but what comes to mind for me is You know, I sit on the committee for the Long Island Imagine Awards and the New York City Imagine Awards, and I'm going to do a bunch of videos called Can You Imagine a World Without Nonprofits? And I thought of this morning, and specifically to your organization, Amy. I thought of going into a library with all the books off the shelves. So maybe there's something fun that I can do with each of you guys as, can you imagine a world without an organization that educated on water safety? What would that look like? What would a world look like, you know, if there was not a overnight free bereavement camp, and all these things. So I want to be playful with that. So if you guys have any feedback or ideas on that, because the Imagine Awards for Long Island, the applications are out right now. They are live. So anyway, when things come into my head, I usually just say most of them. So if you hang out with me enough, you know, that's just the way it is. So I want to put that out there to you guys in the universe. If you have any ideas on how we can just continue to talk about the Imagine Awards. It is the 10th anniversary of the Long Island Imagine Awards this year. So I see some notes in there, so I'll check it out in a second. Let's go to Eileen and then Roberta, please.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Pulse Center for Patient Safety, Education and Advocacy is a nonprofit. We're all volunteers. This is our 25th year here on Long Island. We started as a support group for survivors of medical injury after the death of my son when he bled to death from a tonsillectomy. And then I had a severely premature child who was born at 23 weeks. He's an adult now living as a chef in Cincinnati. So I often say I saw the worst of healthcare, but also the best. And this is what we want the public to be aware of, that medical errors are the third leading cause of death in the country. We need to be a bit responsible for our own safety and not expect healthcare providers, especially now who are overworked and understaffed, to get it right 100% of the time. But people aren't taught what to do and what that means. So right now we have a campaign that we're working on, Take Charge campaign, which has 13 organizations across the country, including the very prestigious Joint Commission, which accredits over 23,000 organizations. They just did a presentation for us on their support of the Take Charge campaign for their staff. This is not for patients. The work we're doing is not always for patients, it's for people who are entering the healthcare system to be prepared. And we like to focus on high school and middle school students because as they go off to college, they need to be prepared and have knowledge of a healthcare proxy form and their medical history. So we work with young people. We're trying to build on our board and build around. We grew way too fast this past year, I got to be honest with you. I don't call myself an executive director because I don't get paid. So, you know, we need support in you know, people who want to help us build this organization and thanking the people who are working so hard across the country, because now we've picked up people who are most of the people we work with are healthcare professionals who don't necessarily represent their organization, their hospital or their business, because they're independent in supporting Pulse. They know that the problems are out there. So we're, you know, I like to thank them, and I think I do a good job in thanking them, but it's never going to be enough because we wouldn't exist. We do 3 programs every month. We meet every single week, our team, our leadership team, to plan programs for the public, and we get great feedback. So I don't know how to thank them other than, like somebody said before, about treating them each as a person. I keep in touch with each person individually too, and don't want to forget that they're people first, and I don't want to lose that. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for being so real, because I think a lot of us don't always know how to extend that appreciation. You know, thanks for all you did. Yeah, but that's sometimes I can feel trite, right? And how do we really do it? Well, I know a guy who calls himself the gratitude dude, and he's here with us today. So I think, well, he's gonna have some insight for that. He actually just did 24 hours of gratitude. We'll talk about that in a bit. Roberta, let's have you talk, and then Mark, I know you're driving, but after Roberta finishes, if you could just jump off, and if you cannot, I'll understand, but I see you nodding. So so Roberta and then Mark Bahanian.
Good morning, all. Hi, I'm actually very happy to be here and grateful to your helper who helped me get online because I was having a really, really tough time. So I'm extremely grateful to her. We are Destination Accessible. We are a 501c3 whose mission is to enrich the lives of people with mobility challenges. And we do this by providing firsthand accessibility information of places people go for fun: restaurants, parks, theaters, museums, kid-friendly venues. We believe that everybody deserves to have a good time, and the disability group is often overlooked when it comes to those things. So our goal is to have everybody have the best experience possible when they are going out. What we need, well, we need everything, but one of the specific things that we could use from the group here is to get people to know about our site. So I get emails from people who have found us who's like, I never knew about you. I never knew that you existed. So we need people to know about us. We need people to like us on Facebook. We need people to give us some Google reviews, anything that will help direct traffic for people to know about us. Most people don't think about anything like that until they need it. Someone last week sent me an email and said, somebody told me about your organization and I went to your website. I didn't know there was any such thing. I didn't need anything until my wife had an accident last month and is now in a wheelchair. So we're not only for people with wheelchairs, but anybody with any sort of a mobility challenge at all. So please look at our website. We're open to any ideas people have. We could use suggestions for places to visit, inns for places to visit. And of course, we always need supporters and donations because we're a really small niche and we realize that. But nevertheless, when I get these emails and information from people, I feel really grateful that we're able to help people have a better experience in life. I'm extremely grateful for this organization, happy to have found you and been invited to join. And I'm happy that we're all healthy and grateful for each day.
Right on, man. I'm with you on that. I'm just trying to live in the moment. I'm trying to be present where I'm present all these times because I don't know. I know I have this moment with you guys. I don't know what happens after this, Roberta. So thank you for pointing that out and the appreciation and the gratitude. So Mark, if you can come off mute, and after that, I see you did. So good. After Mark, Shannon Malkin Daniels, please.
Good morning, Mark Bahanian, and I hope that I don't know how to turn the camera off now while I'm driving, but I hope it's not too distracting.
You're fine.
I'm the founder of a small organization called Pathway to Kinship, and we're in the restorative justice space, working with formerly incarcerated, helping them to reintegrate into society through helping find housing, education, and employment. And special shout out, if you get a chance, you can go on our website, pathwaytokinship.org, and Ted Danson and Mary Steenbergen were kind enough to participate in a small video, a 3-minute video for our organization. And, already this morning, I got a text early from one of my guys I've been working with who is getting his very first driver's license, and he was on his way to the DMV. And yet, just yesterday, I had an exchange with another guy who said, hey, I just got off parole. I've never been out for more than a year. I don't know what to do with myself. So I'm having experiences with these folks that is so inspiring and move organizations, right? 10 different organizations in this space where we provide services and we also do some contributions. While I'm not Catholic, I've been spending time with a nun. We just went into the Corcoran State Prison this week. I now have statewide access where I can go into any prison in California. So I'm grateful for these opportunities, which have given my life a new sense of purpose and meaning. And I'm just grateful that my experiences and skills have a place to add value. And I'm just so inspired by the people I've been meeting, and also grateful to each of you because everybody who shared today has already touched my heart. Thank you for the opportunity, Tommy.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you being here so early, and you reached out to me, just last week, and I think we're going to make a connection for you and Dave Linn because I think there's something cool to talk about. The three of us, or at least you guys, if you want me there, I'll be there. But I just shared your website because I know you're on wheels right now. So I put pathwaytokinship.org in the in the chat box. So I did say after that it was going to be Shannon, and you guys moved around the table now. So now I have to figure it out. After Shannon, we're going to go to Ian if you can. Ian, you just let us know if you can. If you can't, we'll move right to Rebecca. So Shannon, Ian, and then Rebecca.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. This is, I don't know how many roundtables I've been to now, but I love this community and this group. So thanks for having me back. And I'm the founder and CEO of Incaptive. You all probably know me from that. But I also am a co-founder and committee member for Stanford Innovation Week, which is the fastest growing innovation festival in the Northeast. It is a nonprofit and we are mostly completely volunteer run. And so really grateful for all the volunteers that make this event happen every year. COVID has put a little bit of a damper on it. We can still hold the conference portion and some of the educational stuff electronically and virtually, but those like big festival type moments with music and art installations and a lot of the meet and greet and networking is not really happening in the same way virtually. I'm also a board member of the Stanford Partnership, which is over a 40-year-old organization that's focused on improving the quality of life for Stanford's residents and its businesses. And some of the many programs that we work on are things like we've put free Wi-Fi in all over the downtown area where people can come and work and use Wi-Fi free of charge. When COVID happened, we implemented restaurant bonds to help the local restaurants that were hurting. So we created a bond program where people could buy gift certificates. That money went to the restaurants right away, but then they could come back and use them later. They could also gift them. We put in a program called Tech Forward, which was an upskilling program for a lot of people that lost their jobs during the COVID period. We had free courses on upskilling and things like HubSpot and Google Analytics and SEO and stuff like that, so they could have some technology background, some marketing stuff that they could take into the workforce to get jobs. And we also launched a Stanford Promise, where we're helping students that may not otherwise be able to go to college get merit-based guaranteed scholarships of $5,000 a year to be able to go and realize their dreams of going to college. So those are some of the things we're working on. What I'm grateful for, obviously, all of the board members I work with and all of the many volunteers that help make all these things come into being. But also on a personal note, I have been having a lot of struggles in the last year from a health perspective, and I'm really, really appreciative of my team, of my friends, of my family, all of my colleagues and just my community that have really helped to support me and my family through all of these hard times. So I'm really, really grateful for that.
Thank you, Shannon. And, you know, there's just something about hearing us share gratitude, and it is personal, Dave, Linn, we know that. But I just feel better hearing people talk about this stuff, man. And I'm not a scientist. So maybe you guys didn't know that. I'm not a scientist. I'm making that statement now just for those of you who might have been confused and thought I was. I'm not. But I think there's certainly something in our physiology and our psychology that is really influenced by this whole gratitude thing. And Dave will talk to us about that in a second. Ian, I know you got your headphones going. You look like your air traffic control. Tell us, Ian, from the car.
Yeah, actually, perfect timing, Tommy. As usual, I just parked. I am Ian Wilder, Executive Director of Long Island Housing Services. We're an over 50-year-old civil rights organization focused on fair housing. And I'm actually grateful, I'm meta grateful, because asking what I'm grateful about has helped me think about what I'm going to say for the video for our gala in 2 weeks. Because I often talk about our organization helps people achieve the American dream, which is living where you want, which means free of discrimination. But what I'm grateful for is my job allows me to be in a different place in the ecology of nonprofits and a lot of these other organizations. We did a couple of months ago something about LinkedIn, and the guy said, "Don't put any politics up." And I laughed because that's my job. That's what I get paid to do. I get paid. I hate using the phrase truth to power, but I say truth to power when necessary. I get paid to help make a more perfect union. Within the last month, I went and testified in front of a town board and a county legislature and told them that the laws they're doing are wrong, that they shouldn't be passing these laws, that they're going to hurt people, that they're not going to make things better. So I am very grateful for that. We'll even go a step further. At times, we've sued grantors whose housing arms are breaking the law. So I am very grateful to be able to do those things and help make our society better. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you. I was Googling your website because I want to get it in the chat because I'm imagining you cannot do that. So I want to put it in the chat for everybody. That's why I was late to come back. And I see the gala, if I just found it, the 52nd anniversary gala, right?
Yep.
All right. So,
and by the way, I think you are a scientist. I think you're Tommy DeGrasse Tyson.
yeah. Wow. That's
what the D stands for.
Heck of a compliment to me. I feel for Neil deGrasse Tyson on that one. No, I don't know. I will tell you before I put the gel in my hair, and this may be my Halloween costume. My hair looks like Einstein, like in the morning, like it just looks like that. You know, like so I'm thinking of just like dressing like him and riding along on a bicycle in my backyard, like that old, Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
Picture with him and the bike and the whole thing. But wow, Neil deGrasse Tyson, thank you. That's a heck of a compliment. Let's keep moving before I can't get this big head out of the attic. All right, let's go to Rebecca. Thanks, Ian. Rebecca, and then after Rebecca, Karen Seiler, please.
Hi, good morning. Great to be here as always. Thank you guys for offering this. I'm always inspired every time, every person that talks. And I am an ideas person, so I'm just like going crazy during these introductions. And I'm so glad that we have this way of introducing, because I don't know how you guys did it in person because I never was there, but this is really, really awesome the way it's working out. So I'm with I Empathize. I am a board member. We do not have any staff members in New York. We have staff members in Colorado, California, Texas, and Florida. Definitely looking to expand our work in the Northeast. I would love to communicate with many of you who are working with youth. So we have an Empower Youth program. We are in the space of working to prevent the exploitation of children and teens. This is a local problem. Some of you are familiar with human trafficking. And so we're here to positively train teens and also any adults that intersect with youth. So we have the Empower Youth program. It's for children 12 and up. We also have sector-based training that is for first responders, police, fire. We have, if anybody is familiar with Truckers Against Trafficking, we are the media and behind Truckers Against Trafficking. We prepared all their training, media training. So anyway, just so many things going on, but we have launched an online platform over the past year, which was already in the works prior to COVID, but the timing was amazing. So the training can be facilitated online in a one-on-one setting, in foster care, in group homes, for social workers, teachers, basically anybody. I'm thinking of the Girl Scouts since that was on today, mentioned somebody, and that was a connection I hadn't thought of, but I am a Girl Scout and I have friends that have chapters. And so anyway, again, the ideas. So thank you so much.
Yeah, so thank you for pointing out the Girl Scout thing. And if you saw me look away, it was only so I could find my calendar link, because Rebecca, you and I need to jump on a call to really help you advance your mission and connect with the people. I mean, thanks for the compliment about how we run this meeting. This is just, I'm good at a couple of things, and one of them is getting people to kind of tell their stories and talk about what they need. So we appreciate you being here, appreciate you being part of this, and like I said, I put my calendar link in the private chat there for you. Put some time on. Let's talk about. Yeah, let's find a way that the old nonprofit sector connector can do his job.
Yeah, because we're in LA County schools. We're in schools in Colorado. We are in a lot of places, and many of them, it's just connecting a dot to New York.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I find even, you see, I know we've had some of your folks from Colorado on this call. You're from the West Coast. That was not possible back when we did this in a conference room in Melville, Long Island, right around Route 110. That stuff didn't work. So thanks for being here. And
Thank you.
yeah, and always feel free to bring other folks from either from your organization or other organizations. So you're welcome. Yep, absolutely. Thank you. You're welcome. The whole thing. I'm ahead of myself. Too much caffeine. Let's go to Karen Seiler, and then we got to shout out Shannon was a Brownie and a Girl Scout. So very good, Shannon. So the Girl Scout, I was actually I overheard my wife talking about scheduling. She runs a troop over here for one of my girls, and she was talking about them going kayaking. And I sit on the board of Horseability on, if I haven't mentioned on this call yet, and Horseability SUNY Old Westbury, which is my alma mater, and they do Girl Scout events there on Friday nights. So Tammy, if you haven't done something like that, you should definitely look into getting involved with Horseability if appropriate. And Rebecca, we will talk. Karen Seiler, take it away.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm going to make it brief because I'm having a little bit of a crisis here at home, but I love what you guys do, and I thank you for allowing me to speak for just this brief moment. So I'm the founder of Karen's Hope. We are a small not-for-profit located in Nassau County, Long Island. We support, advocate, and empower individuals with disabilities. We opened up a self-directed home several years ago, and we're working on our second one. But in the interim, we've been doing lots of programs for these guys and girls. And I have to tell you, everything that we do is all about empowerment and gratitude. And the kids just respond tremendously to having the strategies and tools, especially during COVID. It's been a challenge for everybody. So when I saw this and you were highlighting gratitude, I just had to jump on. So,
oh, we're glad you're here. All the best with whatever you have going on at home. I don't know if you and I have ever spoken, but shout out to the Lindy Lou Foundation, which is a memory of my cousin Linda. And we thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. We should talk, Karen. If we've not done something from Lindy Lou for Karen's Hope in the past, and I'm like DJing over here, I'm looking at your LinkedIn and stuff on my other screen. But if we've not done something yet, let's talk about that. And let's talk about maybe there's something I can do from a service perspective. The Girl Scout stuff is blowing up the chat box right now, so that's exciting. So way to use the chat box, a little bit of the multitasking as I talk about. You can save the chats. Like if you click save in the bottom right-hand corner, if you want to follow up with people about certain things. So I think I had everybody aside from Dave and myself do an introduction. So, and that wasn't because I didn't want you to do an introduction, Dave. That was because we're going to do it now. So, all right, let's move right in. We heard a lot. We heard a lot about gratitude, how important it is to you all. And I saw Dave taking notes. I certainly was doing the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spotlight Dave and I.
I was actually doing crossword puzzle.
Oh, are you? Oh, well, then we got to start over. We're doing a crossword puzzle the whole time? Really? Spotlight Dave. I want to spotlight me too. Can I pin me? I want to pin me. Let's see, remove all spotlights. All right, remove. Let me just go gallery. So I really wanted this to be pinning both of us, but I might have screwed the whole thing up. I don't know. No, there it goes. You guys see Dave and Tommy? Yes? No? All right, I did.
Right now it's just Tommy.
I wanted it to be Dave and me, but on my screen, it's both of us.
Well, I see Dave up in the panel with others and you in the big screen.
Yeah, let me just go to, how about now?
It's on speaker view, so whoever's speaking is taking the big
Yeah,
screen.
I didn't really want that. What do you see all of us again?
No, you're the big screen still.
All right, that might remove pin. How about now?
Same.
Same. So it's just going to be you guys staring at me the whole time, which is definitely not what I wanted to happen.
Again, we do see Dave up, but he's in a smaller box as the rest of us, or that we can see, are in small boxes too.
Right.
I think once he starts talking, he'll move to the big box.
Let's try it. Maybe when Dave talks, that's what Mick Collins is saying. Charlie's giving me the thumbs up. It's like it's the first time I use Zoom. It's not even the first time I've used Zoom today. All right, so let's just jump in real quick. I mean, I'll tell you the story how I met Dave Linn, and then I'm going to read some of his bio and background, and then we're just going to get into this conversation about gratitude. So about 6 years ago, I'm at the Queen's Chamber of Commerce, and This man stands up on the other side of the room, and I was not even nearly as into nonprofits as I am now, but I love nonprofits then. And this man stands up and says, we have this program, the Generosity Series. We do these 5K run walks, and we partner up with for-profits as sponsors, and there's a community, there's a charity community, a charity village, and you become, if you're a nonprofit, you become part of the event. It is not just your event, so you don't have the heavy lift of trying to pull off a 5K run walk. And if you've ever tried to do one, I'll tell you, you probably know the statistics. The first year, probably going to lose money. The second year will be great if you break even, and then the third year is when you really make money. And Dave and his team at the Generosity Series had showed that you can make money and have a great showing the first year when you partner up with Generosity. And so that's just how we met. And I ran across the room. I don't know if I ran, but I went across the room and I grabbed Dave and I said, we got to be friends. And any of you know me, I literally move people around a room. So I was in a meeting the other day and somebody goes, no, I think it was Shannon. I think Shannon said, she goes, yeah, like that's exactly what Tommy D did the first time. He like dragged me to the other side of the room to introduce me to somebody. So I've been known to do that, not physically to hurt somebody, just because I'm excitable like a puppy and a 5-year-old boy. So I just like, come on, I need you to meet these people. So anyway, Dave and I became friends. We did a lot with the Generosity Series. My firm did some stuff with Generosity. My business partner, Ed Probst, sits on the board, 2 boards, in fact, at CP Nassau. Cerebral Palsy Nassau County, and they had a really successful showing, but that's because they were engaged and Dave's team was also very supportive and engaged. So let me read you now about Dave. That's how we met. But with decades of business experience as a founder, a consultant, business leader, entrepreneur, college professor, and graduate school professor, Dave doesn't just believe that ordinary people can change the world. No, in fact, Dave knows it, and I know it too. Dave's gratitude workshops highlight the importance and benefits of gratitude and teach the lasting techniques that build the habits that transform lives and organizational cultures. I was involved with something on the first of this month with Dave Linn. It was called Gratitude All Day. And my buddy went 24 hours live stream, and there were some of us that checked in with him. I got 2 different shots to check in with him, one at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I, went on with my day, and Dave was still there. And I listened to Dave, and it was 11 o'clock at night. He had different people on. And then I showed up at 7 o'clock to do another hour, and Dave was still there. So 24 hours of gratitude all day. And now he's come up with, conceived, and launched Gratitude Rising, which is a platform that will be guided by North America's most prominent gratitude thought leaders. But it also has the connection to the nonprofit sector, which at some point today, when I stop talking, we'll talk about that later on. But Dave, thank you for being my friend. That's like Golden Girls. Thank you for being my friend. You didn't even know I was going to sing today. So yes. Thank you. You were hoping not, right? So was everybody else. So thanks for being here. Thanks for all you do for gratitude. Thanks for all you do. Thanks, Mick. Oh, thanks for all you do for the sector, our sector, the nonprofit sector. Tell us about you. Tell us about your gratitude story.
So Tommy mentioned the Generosity Series, and he's always been a great advocate and even an unpaid salesperson. But if you know Tommy, he does that for everybody. But literally, like, knows my statistics and everything. It's interesting yet scary. It's kind of a little stalkerish. But some years back, we had just launched into Atlanta, doing events in Atlanta. And I got a call around sometime mid-October, something like that, from a group that, not completely like this group, but like a group of nonprofits that used to get together and just, riff and share challenges and work together. So some of them were already charity partners of ours, and some were not. But they said, hey, I guess I had presented before in Atlanta, and they said, hey, Dave, we know you present a lot, and would you present, we want to do something around Thanksgiving, like how to thank your donors. I said, okay, great, that'd be great. I had previously done some work and some research in that. So I started doing some work, and as I'm doing it, it was annoying at me a little bit that I get those types of calls, around Thanksgiving time, holiday time, and I happen to be a fan of Thanksgiving, but, I was started to think that, if that's the only time we're thinking about gratitude, or if that's the only time that, the calendar sort of reminds us to think about it, maybe we need to get a little bit deeper than sort of like the once a year type of thing. So with their permission, I said, can I sort of expand this beyond donor appreciation and talk about gratitude in general, and we as individuals, the people coming to the workshop, working on our own gratitude, because that will spill over into the workplace to our donor appreciation. And we did include donor appreciation. So they were all in. So we did that. And one of my challenges is always with any type of workshop is you can go and have the best presenter, not myself, but you can go somewhere and have the best presenter and be really wowed, but not do anything with it. So my idea was we had to do something. You have to experience gratitude in the moment, not just hear about it. So at the end, I had brought some stationery, and I didn't want anyone to have excuses. I brought stamps, and I had everybody write. We did some donor letters, just how to go through it and steps and stuff like that. And then we each wrote at least one personal gratitude letter to someone in our lives with very little parameters around that. And I collected them and made sure they went in the mail, and the feedback that I got was phenomenal. I think more so of what those letters did than what anything that I might have said, but the feedback about the letters, the people, how they felt writing them, and then down the road getting later and later ripples of people saying, hey, I heard back from this person that I wrote to, I heard about, and they really liked that. And then there was somebody there who had a church organization say, hey, would you do this for our organization? And it started getting, I started getting interest on it, like sort of under the radar. So I said, I want to take some time and do some more research. I got some certifications and some coaching certifications. I got some. I also teach, so I was able to audit some positive psychology classes to get a little more real education, not just the guy who thinks gratitude is cool and does it. So I did that for a good period of time and started, got this. I won't tell the story how I got the name Gratitude Dude, but my kids aren't here, but they'd be cringing, and they started really, I wanted to put a little more of an emphasis into the for-profit space, because I had already, as we see this morning, started seeing that gratitude itself is already very well ingrained in the nonprofit space. So I started doing this for both nonprofits. I was doing it pro bono for nonprofits, and then in the for-profit space in companies, corporations, and things like that, and sort of morphed, and so still going with that, and that's sort of how I got started officially in the gratitude coaching space, so to speak.
So talk to me a little bit, Dave. Thank you for all that. And there's so much that value and impact that you're making in this space, and I'm really inclined to ask you to talk about gratitude all day. But even before we do that, you mentioned for-profit, and obviously our friends here today are both, and we have some solution providers to the sector, myself included, and then you have those of us who are on boards or run organizations. So what have you seen as far as differences or specific nuance in one versus the other, nonprofit or for-profit, and how do you address and maybe educate into those different needs, if you will?
Yeah, I would start by saying that even those of us that are here today that are service providers to the nonprofit space, in my mind, they sort of fall into the same, that dichotomy that I was making, which is, it's a broad brush, but that the reason they're in these businesses is because they have a heart for nonprofit. I always say about the generosity series, like, there are other ways to make millions of dollars than to go become a service provider to nonprofits, right? And so you're usually going into it because you have a heart for it, and
probably a lot easier ways to make millions of dollars than doing
and lose, right? So I sort of put the service providers together, even if they're not solely providing nonprofit, they wouldn't be on a call like this. So I would sort of lump them together for this discussion. But so the main difference is, primary initial difference is the skepticism in some large companies. Thankfully, it's changing, but there is a skepticism where, oh, we're going to write a check to this guy to come in and talk fluffy stuff, that, what's it going to do for my bottom line? And the good thing is that we can actually show, the studies and the business school studies that show that it's going to be good for their bottom line. So it's like we need to get our foot in the door, and sometimes we need that to do that. Whereas the nonprofits are more like, they're certainly more proactive. It's much more likely that they're reaching and looking for somebody to do something that I do, like I do, and they're looking for me. So that's one main difference. And the second is that, as I alluded to, is that the nonprofits are really they're really into it. They're really already doing a lot of the things. But I think the challenge is that they're doing only those things that come natural, and that's all good. It's never bad. But it's, being able to combine sort of what comes naturally to you, which is, some of it is logical, some of it's the type of people that you might be, in terms of being very grateful people, but then also getting sort of some of the tools and tricks. Whereas I think in the for-profit space, it's almost flipped, where it's more like, tell me how to do, and it's like, relax and, think about yourself and your family and sit back. So I think those are really the two major differences. And then of course their funding differences. Like, large companies have, like, large budgets, and particularly nowadays in HR budgets, and where a lot of the budgets come from for these types of endeavors, if we're doing something officially. So they have the money, they're able to do something that's more sustainable. They're able to involve some, fancy apps and things like that. And, really also often give time to do those things. Whereas in the nonprofits, even a larger nonprofit, you have to be your shepherds of money, and you're not beholden to shareholders, you're beholden to the world and to the people that you're benefiting, and your teams. And it's different, but you have to say, okay, well, this is important, and you have to see further down the road to that this is actually going to mean better organization, better abilities, more help, and better help. So I think those are also differences. I think skepticism on the team side of getting inside the company and walking into the room and looking around, and you could see the smirking faces often in the the guys who are like, oh yeah, here we go. And you don't get that in nonprofits, almost never. So it's almost like a level of self-selection. Of course, you'll have on both sides, and I've worked with some incredible CEOs of large companies and banks that are all on board and proactive and want it and believe it and do it, but I think as broad examples, those are probably some of the main differences. And then, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, please continue.
Then I would say that the challenge there is, to sort of, you have to win over whoever it is, whether it's the decision maker, the person who wrote the check. Sometimes you have the controller, the CFO standing in the back with their arms crossed, tapping their foot. Or sometimes it's just within the group, anybody who's run a meeting, or whether it's a board meeting or any other type of meeting, you can usually tell who the main skeptic is, and you can sort of get the alpha person out also, that if this person doesn't get on board, we could lose a lot of those people. So you have to think a lot about, how do I get through to that person as an individual? And usually you can. I mean, I personally believe that the gratitude is ingrained. It's in all of us, and it's just a question of sometimes it's been covered over, or sometimes people are afraid of it for various reasons.
So a lot coming up for me, but I just would reference Gary Vaynerchuk in what he talks about a lot, and like how this stuff is, if you're not familiar with Gary, you guys got to check him out. But I look away because Claude Silver is his chief heart officer. So this is a big organization taking on the world, and Gary Vee is doing really special things in the media space. And it's, he's not saying CRO, he's saying CH, CHRO on her LinkedIn profile. So, big on the gratitude, big on the compassion, big on the, and that is a business, that is a for-profit. But I think you say, Dave, to your point, that folks on this call are on this call because they sort of quote unquote get it already, right? Like we get it, like, right. We may not understand it completely, but we get the value of it. I mean, just the questions, as I go, back to how do I show gratitude for my volunteers and my board members, right? And Tammy says the service unit volunteers, so specific. And, Paul Rubin mentions in the chat, he loves the idea of the card, the greeting card, the gratitude card. So let me ask you, when we talk to, when we put this together, talking about bringing purpose and gratitude to your nonprofit, what can you talk and speak to that purpose and gratitude? Because you talked about HR departments. We all hear the word culture, which is incredibly important, but I think at times becomes cliche and it's a throwaway word. And what does it mean? But I think it's certainly important in nonprofits. Can you talk about that, bringing purpose and gratitude to your organization?
Yeah, I'm going to steal 1 minute before we answer that, to just on the large company stuff, because I don't want to be a basher of large companies. There is certainly a change. There's no question. There's no question that COVID has accelerated that change for individuals who are starting to realize, that the red or black bottom line is not the be all end all. And there are companies that have been, large companies that have been doing this. WD is one of these companies. Amex, JP Morgan with the new CEO is very, very much. Ken Blanchard, who's been writing for decades and served leadership and everything like that. So there's certainly, and those are all studies that you can look at and say, look at these companies and they're all thriving. And sometimes the differentiator is that they're attached. So I would say first as culture, culture is, I believe, both an overused word or a misused word. I mean, culture is just very simply, the ways that we do things in groups, right? Like, a person has a habit, but then, then there's like mores where other people start doing it. And then when everybody's doing it, or there's certain common expectations, that's what creates a culture in anything, but particularly now in an organization, in a company. And when it comes to purpose, also probably a very widely used, overused word. I was personally talking about chief heart. I was a chief purpose officer for a good while for a company. And I sort of stepped back, and I sort of run some of their culture stuff. And now they're sort of hiring me out to run culture for some of their clients. But for a while, that was the only thing that I did for them, and was just about, trying to establish a positive culture. I shouldn't say establish, but maybe uncover a positive culture. My job is to come in and say, okay, this is what I think your culture should be. And I think that when it comes to purpose, and if we were to define it in a way of, like mission, vision, and values, without getting into the minutia of what those things also could mean differently to different people, I think that my experience with creating purpose decks for nonprofits versus for-profits is very interesting. Most nonprofits, particularly founders or established EDs that have been there for a little while, they are so clear on their purpose and their mission and their vision. Whereas we'll often find in for-profits that they're not. They're really not. And it takes them a while to say, well, to get off the fact that my purpose is to make money, and I'm talking about, they buy in. They end up buying in. Like, it's not like we just make something, they end up buying in. But I think one of the challenges with a nonprofit, or I think a secondary thing with a nonprofit, is that they have to think about an internal purpose that's maybe nested within their broader purpose, because their broader purpose is usually mission oriented, right? They know who they're serving, they know what they're doing, they know why they're here, right? And the challenge is often, number one, being able to articulate that, which is sometimes difficult. These are very big and worthy things, and sometimes the words fail. I was very impressed, by the way, with all the introductions, that everybody was pretty much able to encapsulate in 30 seconds what they do, which is not so common. But I think that one of the challenges we see is that structured culture or purpose within an organization sometimes struggles because we're so good at it, because we're so purpose oriented, because we are gratitude oriented, that there's less attention given to actually thinking about, what works, what doesn't work, and a lot more about the passion. I always say, in nonprofits, you need to be, scarecrows and tin men. You need the heart and you need the head, right? And you think about that when you do your budgets and you do your planning, when you're going for grant, right? But when it comes to things like purpose and gratitude, we often let ourselves completely be ruled by our emotions. And that could sometimes be right and get it right, and very often get it right, but it's not structured. And then therefore, in a sector that has high turnover rates, and now everybody has high turnover rates, but in the nonprofit sector, which traditionally has high turnover rates, it's very hard to get somebody acculturated, right? When they come on board, you show them how to use the certain, the onboarding process often suffers from a culture standpoint, and they pick it up quickly, and everyone's so much nicer, and that usually works well. But now that we're often not even in the office, it becomes a little more of a challenge in for-profit and nonprofit. But I think in nonprofit, that, just to put a head on it, that there is perhaps should be maybe a focus more on what's our internal purpose, have a purpose for the culture, what is the purpose of, we know what we're doing here for the outside, what are we doing here for ourselves? So I think that that's certainly something that you won't find. It might not even be recommended to do that with a for-profit, where we're often telling them, you have one purpose, right? And your internal purpose and your external purpose are the same. I think that for nonprofits, it often needs to be different.
So much there. Obviously, I want to go into some real practical things that organizations can do. Some of which is real simple, right? Just the cards, and we can talk about some of the workshops you've done with the cards, and you mentioned it up front. But I do want to there's a couple things that are coming in the chat, and something here from Charlie. I'll read it. And Charlie, if you want to come off mute, because that's how we operate here. This is total community. So if you want to come off mute and kind of underscore any more of this, which says, in my work with small businesses around their websites, I find this to be true. There are often hyper focuses on the bottom line, and they need to help connecting with their mission, visions, and purpose. And she says, I'm die hard about getting them to include this information on their website. It's important for consumer bonding and promotes customer loyalty. Yeah, I think about it in terms of my own firm and what we do, and trying to align and we're doing some of this branding stuff right now. So aligning, I go to market and say, we're employee benefit specialists, and we have a major focus in the nonprofit sector. But it's telling that story. It's the DNA. Certainly the DNA of Tommy D and what I do is out there, right? But it's, I think, aligning that to the firm. So Charlie, Dave, obviously jump in, but Charlie, do you have any more you want to add to that? Some of the experience you've had, whether it be, I know some of the work you do is with business improvement districts and chambers and really local community-based organizations. Do you want to speak to some of that, what you had here in the chat?
Yeah, I mean, I think I partner with the Main Streets and the downtown associations to help them support the businesses that are in their districts in terms of their website presence and elevating the community presence. But what I'm just constantly hammering into people's heads is that your brand is much more than just your logo. And I was actually in a Facebook group yesterday, and somebody was saying, we're trying to get our board to buy into a rebrand. Can people share pictures of their logos? And it's like, okay. And people are sharing pictures of their logos. And me and a few of the other people in this space that are doing this part of the work are saying, okay, yes, but it's so important to remember that your brand is not just more than your logo. Your logo is just a piece of your brand, as is your mission, as is your purpose, as are your values. And what I like to say to people, and this applies to nonprofits and for-profit companies, is to think about your logo as your face, right? It's the face of your brand identity. So just like you're going to a networking event and you're wearing the same face every time, like that would be kind of weird if you didn't have the same face every time, but no relationship comes out of just your face, right? Like a relationship is not built by what your nose looks like, right? And so it's the same thing with the brand. The brand is the personality, it's the values, it's the essence of what you're doing, and it's the differentiator. And so trying to get people to understand that and really embrace that, and finding ways to, especially the larger your organization gets, the more clear you are on these pieces of your vision, of your purpose, of your values, the easier it is for everybody in the in your organization, for profit or nonprofit, to embody that consistently and create a cohesive experience. And that is something that's going to help create trust. And so for the nonprofit space, that's where you're going to build those bonds with the really big donors and advocates, because if every interaction with everyone else in your organization creates inconsistencies, that's going to erode trust, and in a needless way, right? So I hope that adds some value.
Really did. Yeah. Sorry, Dave. Really great stuff. And I just think it's kind of cute and funny to say, like, my logo actually is my face. Like, if you look on the wall behind me. So I was kind of chuckling inside as you were saying that. So that's kind of cute. So I wasn't going to point it out because I thought it'd be distracting, but I thought it was funny. So I have to do some things. Paul, did you, I saw, I don't know if that was applause that you put up with the logo, with the, sorry, the train's coming by, gang. That's the Long Island Railroad. Always comes through when we're running a meeting. Paul, did you, were you applauding, or did you have something you wanted to jump in on too?
No. I was agreeing with exactly what she was saying. I think it's, your brand is most definitely more than just a face. It's everything combined. It's a combination of, of components, and everything that you do, your reputation, how other people perceive you. It's all about the brand, and that's why people will either they'll either build that relationship with your brand because of your brand, or they'll come to you because they'll want to know more about your brand. But if you just have a logo, it really doesn't say much. It's just something that, it's an instantaneous recognition, which is what I think Charlie was talking about. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate everybody's feedback too. So feel free to come off mute when you have something, throw something in the chat, and I will do my best to address it. So Dave, let's go back to this for a second. So Shannon says, with COVID, work from home has become more and more prevalent. We all know that for sure right now, and it's here to stay. Look, probably 15% of the population way before March 20 knew this was the way to do things, and the rest of us kind of just have figured it out now. So how has virtual work affected mission, purpose, and gratitude? I'd take that to say, let's also say, how's it affected this, but also how do we award, reward, recognize in a practical way, certainly our staffers, but then, and as that ripple effect goes out for a nonprofit.
Yeah, so there's no question that things have changed. I mean, we all feel it, we all know it. One of the good things about it is that at least the gratitude industry, whatever that means, the coaches and things like that, really started before COVID, a big focus on the fact that statistically we were already starting to shift, at least on the younger side of the work world, starting to shift to some more virtual and things like that. So for gratitude and values particularly, it's a big challenge. It's a different challenge, but I think the hardest part about it is that we're still in transition, right? So I know people who have started jobs during COVID, right? They've never met individually the people that they work with, right? And they have told me personally that becoming, learning the values, learning the people, it's a big challenge, right? So I feel that the first is, you ask the question, that's the first thing, like to say, hey, don't we have to be doing things differently? Don't we have to maybe doing a little bit more One of the things that I often did at this company that I was a chief purpose officer at, in addition to what we had certain segments every week where we would get together and work on either a value and talk it out and do some workshop, one of the values, so we can understand it a little better, everything like that. But we always had, I insisted on, like at least a half hour a week where no bosses, and it was just chill time, with your coworkers, right? And throw a little structure in, because otherwise people will be like, oh yeah, what'd you do? What'd you do? What'd you do? What'd you do? And some people are talking to each other through the day, but so you throw it, but it's all the orientation is all about just like breaking down barriers and getting to know people better. There's a lot that's missing that we probably took for granted, what we call the water cooler conversations and things like that. It's the 30 seconds just walking by, hey, you saw that game, or oh, you what'd you do for dinner, or oh, that sweater looks great on you, and what ends up happening is that almost all of our interaction becomes work oriented, right? So it's very official. Some people are finding they're more productive, right? Actually, but we can't sacrifice that humanity because people won't stay, or people won't be happy. So we have to really think about different ways to do different things, whether it's, and I think in general, and this goes through, people ask questions about board members, people ask questions about donors, right? And showing gratitude to them. The idea that there's a one size fits all, whether that's, the virtual space or the actual space, or, every donor versus, or every board member, right? So one of the things that I coach is the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but most people are familiar, at least if they haven't read the 5 love languages, right? It's, I don't know, probably 40, 50 million bestseller, right? And it's a very simple concept, right? Which is that we can often try to express love to people and be really, really mean it and really love the person and really trying to tell them, but they're not hearing it because we're not speaking their language, right? So there are different types of love languages. So the author of that book, as well as Dr. Paul White, who's an occupational psychologist, industrial psychologist, they created this system of the 5 language of appreciation. And without having to get into the details of it, but there's the concept that not everybody, when it comes to gratitude, is spoken to in the same way. And I feel like in the digital space, the more digital we are, the more virtual we are, the easier it is to dash off something, right? So a few things happen. One, I believe, most people will tell you not, but I believe you can overdo gratitude, right? If you thanking, thank you for, opening your camera, thank you for typing on your keyboard, thank you for, it just because you devaluing it, right? It's like almost, it's like inflation, right? Like, so much of it that the value goes down. So if we, we have to think about how we're doing that and do it in different ways, right? So someone wrote, the personal letters. It's a guarantee. Like the personal letter thing is so solid. We all know it, right? Like if you're in nonprofits, the small to mid-sized nonprofits, they get that personal letter. There's nothing better than it. Of course, as the organization grows, it becomes very difficult. There are CEOs of large organizations that write 40,000 letters a year because they write a happy birthday card, but they write out a whole message to the person. Something they don't know so well, but whatever else it is, and they literally do it themselves. It can be done, but we have to think about the value for our time and for the organization. But sending the personal letters or just something different, something. I find postcards are phenomenal. I used to travel a lot pre-COVID, and if I dashed off a postcard to somebody while I'm in the middle of Texas somewhere, it's like they're thinking, hey, you thought of me, and I knew I had a lot of downtime when I traveled, so I would always take them with me. We actually, Mike and Gina at the Gratitude Spark, they actually have these postcards that just says that you buy them in a package, says you spark gratitude. And then just a postcard is also great because you don't have to think, oh my gosh, I have to sit down and write a full letter. And, it's a small space, and who sends postcards nowadays, right? That are personal as opposed to, a solicitation or something like that. It's like all mail, right? Your mail is usually junk mail or bills, and the surprise of getting a handwritten letter, it never fails. Never fails. So yeah.
Dave, you mentioned the Gratitude Spark. You know, I love the other assessments an organization can look at, strategies, programs to adopt. You know, I put in the chat because you mentioned it, the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, but I'm sure you have your own assessments and things. But what can, so I'm a CEO, I'm an ED, and I'm trying to figure out how do I do this gratitude thing for my stakeholders, who are my staff, my volunteers, program participants, major donors, minor donors, medium donors. You know, how do I, what's the way that I can sort of assess how I'm doing and then come up with some programming maybe going forward?
So there are, it really depends on budget, right? Because unfortunately, most of the assessments, you know, are going to cost some money. But I think you could do informal. I think asking your major donors. I think if I was a major donor, and it's going to be, you're going to define that differently for every organization, obviously, but and I got asked, you know, do you feel appreciated? I think that's a thoughtful question, and I've known some organizations that have taken that on, and you know, sometimes they're happy that they're getting back that they do feel. Some people ask the question, you know, do you hear from us too much? Because, you know, there's also that overkill even when it's not gratitude. So I would say that, you know, there are certainly internal, you can do like the 5 languages, there is an assessment, but it costs, I think it's $20-$25 an individual, depends how many people you have. It's very worthwhile if you have a small team, because then you'll find out what that person's language is. You'll learn a little bit of how to speak that language. I think if you buy the book, you get a free assessment. It's probably like, you know, I don't know how much the book is, $18 or something like that. There are some free, you know, online personal gratitude assessments, but I think that just like an informal type of survey of donors, and ask your board also, like, do your board members feel, do they feel appreciated? I will coach with new hires. I don't like to ask them, you know, how do you want to be appreciated? You know, I don't want to ask them, you know, if we're not the organization that's actually giving them the assessment to find out their language. One of the questions that I would ask on either on an onboarding or usually on an onboarding would be, you know, in a past, assuming they've had a past job, when did you feel most appreciated? You know, with a 2-line answer, you know, and it's because, you know, it's not to get into the languages, but some people want, you know, words of praise, which words of praise are the most common, right? And those are our letters, and those are your, you know, you did an amazing job on that thing. But more than 50% of people, that's not their primary language, right? So we have to think about other things such as acts of service. By the way, Tommy is one of them. Like how you're helping them with what they do is a way of showing your gratitude, that you appreciate what they do, and things like that. So you could take those assessments. I think you could also start sussing it out, you know, tangible gifts. It's always a big question the end of the year to donors or you know, vendors or something like that. That we can get into. I don't know if it's really the best use of our time now. Is there an overlap with the love languages? Yes, there very much is. Very similar, although they say that they don't necessarily match as an individual, but the categories, yeah, there's a pretty large overlap. And actually, the new version of the book has a big push on virtual and how to do things differently in the virtual space. You know, doing anything surprising. Is always a great way. You know, if you could surprise somebody with gratitude, you know, that's the opposite of this, the you know, expected or trite. And I would say one differentiation that I would want to make is the difference between appreciation and recognition. It's something that Dr. Paul White does talk about in the book, that recognition, and they're both important, right? But I think when we're talking about gratitude, it's more on the appreciation side. Recognition is, you know, usually related to a task or an anniversary, or, you know, you whatever, you know, you finished a major, you wrote a grant, or you got a grant, or whatever else it is, right? It's tied to something, and that's important, right? And sometimes it's tied to an anniversary. It's your 5th year with us, and you're showing appreciation, however we're doing that. And then there's appreciation itself, which is more about who you are as a person, right? And it's not tied necessarily to a task. And that's much more meaningful in a way, right? Because now, you can't really outsource that. You can outsource recognition. There are companies that do recognition for you, right? My brother used to work for a company where one of the largest recognition companies, and they had the signatures of all like the major CEOs because they had to send out all the letters that they were writing on their behalf, right? But appreciation is more about you as a person. And it may be triggered or cued by an incident, but it's to say it's not, I love the fact that that whenever we have an issue, you will step up, you sacrifice your family time if you know it's important, and that does not go unappreciated. And it's very meaningful for us. It shows us how important this is to you, and we hope that, and by the way, what's the best way to show appreciation to a person like that does that? We want to give you a long weekend to spend with the family or whatever else it's right related, but that, I think that differentiation between recognition and appreciation gets you a little bit past the expectations. Like you're supposed to get this, watch when you retire, or this, award or something like that. So I think that's an important distinction. And then I think specificity in general. I think that's probably obvious to all of us, but like attaboy, attagirl, probably outdated language as it is, but it's just, and it could, that's a perfect example. You could mean it, right? And it could just be your style, right? But how is it landing, right? The gratitude is measured on the ear of the receiver, not on the mouth of the giver, right? So how's it landing with them, and if it's not very specific, then, and the more specific you can do, the better, right? Like, like if you could really go down the road, especially if you're writing, that's just, you can never.
Dave, maybe a quick, and guys, obviously jump in with questions when you have them here. We're drawing too close because in my promise at the beginning of this year, I said we will be out of here at 9:55, and I'm going to keep that promise. But Dave, give me an anecdote or two about, an organization that implemented a gratitude practice, procedure, structure, whatever it may be. And as a result of that, maybe some of the tangible, or at least the feedback that they got from who they were showing gratitude towards.
I would say that the ones that stand out most for me, that some of them may even be nonprofits, but hospitals, some of the hospital workers, even pre-COVID, right? Like these are people who really are like nurses. Nurses particularly have one of the highest burnout rates of any job. Nurses and school teachers, believe it or not. But I just say believe it or not, because like the what you would think, it doesn't necessarily, they're not exactly the same type of job, but most people say it's because no one appreciates it, literally, like, because they either never see it. Like if you're an emergency room nurse, if you did a great job, the person moved on and either left or went upstairs and then gets discharged, and you never hear about them. So you don't see the fruits of your labor, and people don't come back. And same thing with a teacher. People can graduate and move on, and they don't hear or see or hear from them. But so particularly when you do, when we've done some in the healthcare space, you do see, you see the surprise of the people, that they're surprised to hear it. They're surprised that people actually felt it, because a lot of times the gratitude is there, it's just not being expressed, right? So I can tell you a quick story that works with it. It's a teacher story. So I have a friend, his name is Brad Meltzer. Maybe you've heard of him. He's a big, he's got New York Times #1 bestsellers. He writes mostly thrillers, but now he started writing all these children's books, and he's got very, very big, amazing children's books. If you don't have him at the Book Fairies, you should check them out. I maybe even be able to get him to donate some, so let me know. And he has an Einstein book, so there you go, Tommy. But so he, when he was right before high school, he moved from Brooklyn to Florida, and he got thrown into a classroom, and right away the teacher saw, he said, this kid's got something special. He shouldn't be in there. He's supposed to be in the honors class, whatever that was. So went to try and get him moved, and couldn't get him moved. And because it was just too late in the year, there was no room. So her name was Mrs. Spicer. She said, Brad, you're going to sit in the back. You're not going to listen to a word I say. And every day she gave him his own booklet of work to do, right? Went through, came out, graduated, was doing his own thing, trying, finally got his first published. And he went to visit Mrs. Spicer. he hadn't been in touch with her, and he knocked on her door unannounced. And he said, "Mrs. Spicer?" And she said, "Yeah." He said, "My name is Brad Meltzer, and I wrote this book for you." And she started crying. And he's like, "Why is she crying?" I'm thinking, I'm also crying. But he said that she was going to retire because she felt like she doesn't make an impact. Why did she feel that way? Because nobody tells her, right? So I think that's the point. That's what we often see when we institute gratitude, formally, informally. We have 1 minute, Tommy?
Yeah, 1 minute, but there is one thing I want you to talk about. So, but that, first of all, that got me with Miss Spicer and Brad Meltzer, and I just had to Google him because I know I recognize the name. Yeah, Dave, we have 1 minute, and we're gonna have to get you back for another conversation. But here's what I'd like you to do, real quick. You and I are collaborating on what you have coming up, Gratitude Rising, and can you speak how that's relevant to our nonprofit friends?
So Tommy mentioned the Generosity Series, which is essentially a collaborative 5K run. What Book Fairies, we're with you. I think we've done mostly with Rebecca. I know she's now at the Hall of Science, but we started, because of COVID, we had to do virtual events, and they did pretty well for the one-offs that we did. But we saw a challenge in virtual events that the engagement levels are very low, and then if the engagement levels are low, the fundraising is going to be low, and the connection to the organization, if it's not already there, it's not really being built well. So we wanted to find a way to make a virtual event more two-sided. Like the people are stepping up, they're paying, they're registering, they're fundraising, they're asking their friends, and they're not even getting that experience. Like someone mentioned earlier, right? We're not getting these, I think it was Shannon that mentioned that, we're not getting the event. So we wanted to give them something, and everyone's supposed to give more swag and more swag and more swag. And I like swag, but I wanted to find a way to give something more meaningful. So we created Gratitude Rising, which is essentially, it's our virtual fundraising platform. It's a virtual 5K run walk. But every participant, when they join, they're getting this full gratitude curriculum. So we've got 5 or 6 of some of the more well-known gratitude coaches, authors in the space. And every participant, not only are they raising money for their organization, they're getting back, they're getting through all different venues in different ways. And it'll be different for everybody what they choose to engage with or not. Live seminars, Q&As with, New York Times bestselling authors of gratitude-oriented books and coaches and gratitude experiences and all this thing. And we really we were looking at it as like a movement. Like it's called Gratitude Rising, and the tagline is show gratitude, grow gratitude. They're showing their gratitude to the organizations, they're growing their gratitude, we're all growing our gratitude together. And that's essentially launching officially October 4, if we get there. The software is pretty much in place. So if anybody's interested, you can hit up Tommy and then he'll get me, or you can put my info in there.
Yeah, Dave, we always send a follow up, and Shannon's asking for the info. So what we'll do is, and I do want to get everybody on the way to their 10 o'clock meetings, but that's something about the gratitude all day that we did. Dave and I will follow up, but what we'll probably do is probably have some educational type seminars around what that program might look like for organizations. I don't want to screw up anybody's schedule, so I do want to let you go. Dave, thank you. Everybody.
30-second point. I should have said this earlier. Work on your personal gratitude. That's so important because now people bring into the audience. If you don't already have a gratitude habit for yourself outside of the office, do that. It's so simple, and it's going to pay the best dividends, and that's going to spill over. Whether it's journaling or just the 3 gratitudes a day, whatever else is. If anybody give my email, I'll be happy to give you lists and or links to it. I also have a way you can do an assessment. It's free of your own gratitude. I can give you a link for that as well to see sort of where you're standing to the extent that we can measure that.
So we will do that. We'll do that in the follow-up, Dave. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, gang. I appreciate everybody being here. But we can always do this again. We can do this on a separate meeting, Dave, if you want to do some sort of workshop with these folks. But reach out to me. Our follow-up email, Dave's contact info will be there. This is the Nonprofit Executive Leadership Roundtable. We'll see you guys in October. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Tommy.
Bye, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta.